Welcome to Reality of Faith and Wisdom, and this is an episode of podcast number 1. We will be bringing you a short, anywhere between 20 to 40 minutes interview in the form of a podcast, a show that focuses on two things. The focus is on faith and wisdom. You see, radical faith and understanding of life has the same platform. There are so many times as people, we operate on two different platforms. Sometimes we operate on a platform of understanding and wisdom as we know it. And sometimes we operate on a platform of just radical faith, but no wisdom. And I believe that faith and wisdom has one platform. It was designed from God to stand on that platform. Moses wrote two things in one chapter. He said that God, you are healer to all. And then later on, he writes about quarantining outside the city. So he used and he saw God's amazing miracles in the form of a cloud, of fire. And what he did, sandals did not wear out. But then yet he uses understanding. And if people sick, he writes about quarantine outside the city. You see, I believe if we understand that, and I believe when we step on that platform and those platforms unite, you can do something great in life. Now, I want you to live an extraordinary life. I want you to live above uncertainty. I want you to live above calamity. I want you to live above fear of this world. Bible calls it the patterns of this world. I want you to live above all that. I don't want you to live in it. And when you live above all that, that's an extraordinary life. But there is, in order to live above that, we got to look up. We got to say, God, you're in charge, and any form of weapon the devil's going to use against us will not prosper because I'm with you. Now, it's okay to be in a dark valley or in sometimes in those valleys of life, but it's not okay for you to build a house there. Now, I think a lot of people build houses in those dark valleys, and they never see sun. They always live under the shadows of their own minds and things that they believed. It's okay for you to go through hardship. But if you break those words, hard and ship is designed for you, is a vessel, is designed for you to take you from point A to point B. But don't build a house in that hardship, because you never meant to live in the ship. You meant to live outside of that vessel. Now, we're going to talk about opportunity in life in the midst of crisis. Opportunity in the midst of crisis. And I want to welcome and introduce my friend, someone that I look up to by the name Tommy Jackson. And let me just say a few things about him. He is amazing speaker. He is a great event MC. He is a financial advisor. He is music executive. Gosh, his life opportunity is this. Tommy Jackson's life purpose and mission is to help others find their true potential. That's what he lives for. His accomplishments, let me speak today, in business and music and coaching and mentoring youth spans 3 decades. So Tommy, you have a lot of experience.
Man, the experience is watching you go. I didn't want you to stop. I was taking notes, man. This was a good sermon. Man, hardship. Yeah. And then this is the first one?
This is the first one. I'm glad to have you, man. I'm glad to have you. So struggles of life and opportunity it brings. Let me start with just a little story, my own story. You see, I grew up in Ukraine. I lived for 16 years in Ukraine. I saw communism. I saw the gray and gray area. Everything's gray, no colors of communism. I saw Berlin Wall fall. I saw Queen last concert that was televised across the whole world. Just a rabbit trail. We're not talking about Queen today.
Maybe the last concert we'll ever see.
That's it. I saw in 1998, I moved to America. And man, I've always been an entrepreneur. By the time I was 18, I opened up my business. I got married when I was 19. I stole the baby. She was just 16, and we're about to celebrate 19 years this year. Actually, yes, hold on a second, 20 years next year. I got to be right about that. You looking at me like, oh boy, he's better be right about that.
Use your fingers and toes now.
That's it.
I don't know what you'll use next year, but...
And during, and I've seen a lot here in America. I mean, I've been blessed. I've owned different businesses. I've owned different things that failed and that succeeded. I traveled the world. I traveled here in U.S. and I traveled the whole world. I've been in music industry, and probably 95% I opened up for every artist that I look up to, and we shared the stage, and it was amazing. Those 10 years was amazing. But in that life, I've experienced a lot of dark valleys. And during the struggles, I always hated it. I mean, I hated it. I'm the one that's always whine. You know, when I'm sick, I'm a baby, man.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too.
and I always just whine and complain and struggle. But after that, when I look back and see my past, it was the greatest opportunity, the greatest blessing of my life, truly. And I don't have time to get into that, maybe on another podcast, but it was the greatest blessing of my life. I've learned how to operate in life. I started to see different opportunities in life. I've learned that failure is necessary, and you're probably going to be talking about that. I've learned to depend on God, and that hard times propel me. Those hard times always propel me into something greater. Right. Something greater. So in every crisis, there's opportunity. So as an investor, as a music executive, as a leader, as someone that I look up to, you need to see those opportunities that it presents before you see crisis. You have to understand that, okay, something's coming, but you have to see the opportunity that lies beyond.
Right.
So first two loaded questions.
Okay, let's go.
And those loaded questions.
Let's go.
Tell us also a little bit about your story and your life story.
Yeah.
But two questions. Tell us how you see opportunity in the midst of disaster or crisis, and what Tommy Jackson do in those times, like specifically, so people can actually, you know what? Man, I'm going to make a small step. I'm going to do something in my life that changes everything. So number one, you say it again, how you see opportunity in the midst of disaster or crisis, and what you do in those times.
Well, first of all, again, I just can't stop listening to you right now. You're on a roll. I can tell when, you're just in the zone. So sometimes I want to get out of the way of that and just listen. I think we all have our times, our history, our story, our past, and they're uniquely different because we're uniquely differently made. But in so many ways, there's just tons of similarity. And so I can't imagine growing up in the environment of Russia, but then I grew up in South Alabama, and unfortunately for me, or fortunately for me, and that's what we're talking about, is in that adversity, there's fortune. And I was with my dad was a drug addict, addicted, abusive person, and it was a real tough childhood. And I can remember scenes that would be like from any movie that you would turn off and walk away from, which I still do today. I'm gonna watch this stuff because there's a reality to that. When you've seen your mom be beat, you don't want to watch it on TV as entertainment. Trust me when I tell you. But by the grace of God, and I wasn't in a church and didn't have a cross and a Bible and all that, but I was 9 years old when I crawled under bed and said, if there is a God, don't let this man ever hit me again.
I want them to hear. Say that again.
I crawled under bed. My dad had been gone for 3 days, and I knew my mom, being a great spiritual, unbelievably powerful woman, was going to ask the craziest question in the world, which is, where have you been? And that was going to lead into a really bad time. And then I would go and try to help and protect my mom, and that was going to be into a bad situation for me. And I crawled under bed, and I said, if there is a God, take me and protect me. Don't let this man ever touch me again. And so that's what I did.
So it was a crisis for you.
Crisis.
It was crazy. I mean, in the midst of all this thing, you saw an opportunity and said, you know what, God, I don't know if you're alive. I don't even know if you're even there, but you grab a hold of the opportunity.
And I think that's where we are today. Quite frankly, we're in that same crisis of unknown. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to look at other people. And at that point, I looked at and started a process that allowed me to see that opportunity. Now, when you're going through it, you don't see the opportunity. Quite frankly, when you're going through it, you don't really understand how different it is. That's just the world you were born in and grew up in. And you start getting out into other circumstances and you realize how abnormal that is. And I started looking at footprints in the sand of people that had a life that I would want, and people that were living the life that I would want. And I started looking at what steps they were taking to get to there. And I understood that all of a sudden those footprints in the sand can tell you a lot about everything. If I followed yours throughout your beginning of being born to here, it would tell me so much about your journey. And I just started looking at it and saying, if this is the life I want, I need to start taking different steps.
Yeah.
If I want a different life, I need to start taking different steps.
So let me ask you here, because I believe a lot of people see opportunity, but they want to take these leaps and bounds in order from here to get to there. Right? I mean, everybody wants.
Everybody.
If only
they want to get to the end before the beginning.
Yes. If only I have this, and even when they get to this, that this is nothing.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about the small steps. Like if, it's a lot of people today, I mean, they sit at home. I mean, we're doing social distancing, by the way. He's about 6 feet away from us. In the middle of all these things, we're trying to use our also wisdom and understanding.
Absolutely.
But in times of these, how do you get out of it? How do you get out of that mentality? Because I think it's a prison of your own mind first. How do you get out? What steps do you make to get out of that?
I think the very first thing, especially, and that's one of the things that I do. I talk across the nation right now. We talk about your power walk, the power of your words, your action, your love, and your knowledge, which we'll talk about along the way. But if you were to look at that, by the grace of God, by the help of God, I had this situation that said, I'm not going to focus on where I am now. I'm going to focus on where I want to be. And then I had to establish a why. Why do I not want to be here? I didn't know how to do that. That was too big of a question. And I didn't know if it could be possible. That wasn't something I wanted to leave myself with, is how is it possible? So all too often we need to build a plan and figure out the plan. If I would have sat down on a piece of paper when I was 9 and 10, I would have never had a plan that would allow me this level of success. Wow. I just needed to take the next step. And what is that next step? And so for me, I focus on where I want to be, not where I am. So I don't focus on the now. I focus on where I want to be.
Going. Yeah.
And that's a one step. So what is the thing I can do today? So I'll get, into the spiritual side. God said he's given us a day. So I learned to maximize today really well and not worry about tomorrow, which ends up being incredibly biblical.
And thank you for this day and you being here. Thank you for that.
It's an honor. So you wake up each day, and a lot of people have this whole focus on a tomorrow. Well, that's a pretty arrogant thought, because we've not been promised tomorrow, but we have been given today. And what I do with today, what can I do today in the way I think, in the way I talk, in the actions that I take? What can I do today that's going to make the day the best day it can possibly be? So I call it living the page. And if we're authors of a book and we're making Mark, and Matthew, and Luke, and it's all there, well, there's actually a Bible book that's going to say Tommy. And so if this is the book that I'm writing and we're authors, we have control. God is in ultimate control, but he gives us the free rein to make a lot of decisions for ourselves and to do what we need to do. And he gives us a book that we can come to, and he gives us stewardship and wisdom and people we can come to and lean on. But at the end, he's given us a day. Yeah. This is the day.
Yeah. See, I've always believed that and always known that salvation is in God's control. Because when we surrender, he's giving us. That's a gift.
Yes.
But life and what you do with your life is fully 100% in your control.
100%.
He might bless it or might not bless it. It depends how you do it, but it's in your, because I've heard so many people that say, well, whatever God's going to do, God's going to do.
No, he says faith without works is dead.
Yes.
He's given us opportunity. And, one of the things that I constantly pray for is to broaden my faith. And faith is an action. I need to take that action. So if we go back to that today mentality, what are you doing today that's going to get you closer to the tomorrow that you want to be? Well, there's part of it's a planning stage. So I'm going to sit here and I look at my circumstances for real, and I look at them for what they are, and I make a plan. But then the second part of that plan is the first action. And most people don't take the first action. They want to take the third and the fourth and the fifth, and they want to get to the outcome. That's so boring. Yeah. I don't want to know the outcome. Yeah. I want to be part of the journey. Yeah. I want to be awake today. So what is the step I can take today? And there's always a step. Yeah. I think the fear jumps in, like in these times, fear is the guiding word. Fear jumps in that what if it's the wrong step? And so I had a mentor to come through my life, Ed Welch, who's a great man. He's passed away now. And he told me, he says, Tommy, to be a a great leader, you're going to have to be a great decision maker. And I was like, that stinks. He says, the great thing about being a great decision maker is you have to make a decision. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm not following you. Yeah. And he says, the way people make decisions is they're so scared of the outcome, but understand no decision is irreversible, but not making a decision will keep you in the same place every day. So it's a decision of what I'm going to do with today, and then that one action, and then I'm going to evaluate, is that action taking me closer? So you take today's times, and we're in this social environment where we have to be home, and if one of our weaknesses would be eating, right? And now we have nobody around. Now we have we don't have our friends at work, we don't have our boss, or we are the boss, but nobody's watching, but we're working at home. But we stack the M&Ms right beside us, and you put in 30 days.
Oh yeah.
Get ready, because you're not going to like the results.
Absolutely. And that's a choice that's a decision that you make. That is a decision. Even though it might be silent.
One of those things is I don't really like where I am today in my health and fitness. Yeah. One of the things they've allowed us to do in these times is continue exercising. So why don't we exercise the power of a decision to not even purchase those right now?
That's so good.
And to take a walk.
That's so good.
Well, see, most plans say 30 days. In 30 days, I can get you big and fit and strong. In 30 days, I can get you to lose weight. In 30 days, I can make you get in control of your finances. There's a reason those 30 days, and I had a second minor in psychology. In 30 days, it takes 16 days to change a habit and a pattern, and then it takes another 16 days to reinforce that into a discipline. Well, in 30 days, if we're enforcing M&Ms, we're going to be really good at eating M&Ms in 30 days. I'm not sure we're going to like the results of it.
Man, you're speaking about M&Ms. I just ate some last night. And I was watching a movie.
Hey, and you know what? I saw where the TV now is up to 8 hours a day, average time spent on it. Now, everything should be in moderation, right? And I understand it's family time and TV time, but I don't have 8 hours to give each day to a TV, especially where are we getting? So another step is, who is providing your source? Where are you getting your sources from? So as you make this plan, is the plan being given by great sources? Even now in this adverse time, if we're looking at our plan, and our plan is to protect ourselves, part of that plan should also be the wisdom of, then how am I going to divide my day? How much of my attention am I going to give to media? How much of my attention am I going to give to the TV? How much of my attention am I going to give to entertaining my mind so I don't have to think about it anymore, right? But some parts of it says there's so many things that we should and can be doing with our day. And so when you see statistics come in and domestic violence is up, alcoholism is up, abuse across the board is up. When you see depression is up, 30 days in that home without a plan and without an action and without proper balance, and if it's 8 hours on the TV, that's probably not healthy. Yeah. It's probably not healthy. Well, what can you be doing? It's endless, so many things.
See, I've always known that you will always have a mentor,
right?
And it can be it or someone.
100%.
And TV can become your mentor in life. Truly. That brings me to another question. What is your balance? Where do you see balance between faith and wisdom? Because a lot of people, even during this coronavirus, I mean, people just radically, I'm going to go show that I live above that. And yet we have to have balance there. I mean, we have to give honor to other people who maybe are living in fear.
Right, 100%.
And so you asked me, I think one of your first questions, you said, listen, are you quarantining or not? Because if I would say I'm probably quarantining, you wouldn't come to do this thing, right? So you always have this balance.
Right.
But how do you see that balance between faith and wisdom? How God leads you through that?
I think I'm going to use the word with balance. I'm going to change it to an order. Mm-hmm. How do I order? And God's a God of order. He's not a God of confusion. Yeah. And right now you're seeing all the confusion, so I know it's not of God. So you learn to eliminate a lot of things really quick. If you're walking in faith and not by sight, and you have a relationship and not religion, and you understand that there is a Lord and Savior that loves you, that actually cares about you, that's intimate with you. For me, when it was like growing up in that tough situation, after 9 years old, it was just me and that voice of God. And it was very immature. I was a child, and when you're a child, you think as a child and you act like a child. But what ends up happening is in that process of balance, there become an order. And when you get things out of order in your life, a lot of things can go wrong. My father got alcohol out of order. And it went from 2 drinks to the drinks controlling him. There was an order in everything. And God says, like if you were to look, and we love to hold on to some of his amazing promises, and he says, I have plans for you to prosper, plans for you to endure, but we stop there and we go, oh, what a mighty God. But if we continue reading, he says, when? And then he talks about when we seek him with all of our heart and all of our mind and all of our soul, when we reorder it.
That's a step.
It's a step when we reorder it. So if that is a step, and he wants the first of your fruit, people go, oh no, tithing, don't talk about that. No, it's not the tithing, that's the money. He wants to know where he is in your order. Who is in command? Who are you giving the controls over? And so when you show him that order, he will then order your steps. So by sitting there and saying that, then how do I order my day? Well, when I wake up, because I'm just like everybody else, and I'll procrastinate, and I won't read in the Word, and I won't spend my time praying, and I know that it's important for me to spend that 30 minutes that I wake up. It's not mine, it's his. Yeah. And that's when I get in the Word. Well, if you get in the Word 30 minutes a day, guess what? You read the whole Bible in a year.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And if you do that for 10 years, you've read the Bible 10 times. And then when these times come, that order starts, that balance you're talking about, that order starts falling into place. I start to get the right balance. I have to start removing the things that are weighting the scale out of balance. So when my fear is getting out of balance, and we all have fear, we all have fear, and that's a normal thing. When it's getting out of balance, I have to ask myself, what am I fearful of? Is this of God? Does this line up with his word? And if it doesn't line up with his word, I trim it off, and it starts rebalancing itself. So how can you trim off a lot of these times? He speaks clearly. This is not new. So he says, when the enemy comes in Ephesians 6, he didn't say if, he says when. Yeah. When it comes, and he gave you all these defensive weapons, helmet of salvation, breastplate of righteousness, belt of truth. But if you read in Ephesians 6, he only gave you one offensive weapon, which is the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. So when I get really out of balance, I go back to the word of God and say, but Father God, what are you saying about this? And it eliminates a lot of the stuff if I really believe. So when I get really fearful, I start looking back at my maker. So you say, what is that step you do? I literally do what's called going dark.
Tell us about it.
I call it what's going dark. And going dark means, and everybody knows me, it's like, uh-oh, Tommy's going dark. I would disappear, and it may be for a day, it may be for 2 days. And I'll try to remove my voice totally. I'll try to remove all the other voices that I'm hearing, friends, TV, all the distractions, business. And I would just go and just be quiet. Sometimes I drive. Sometimes it'll take a day. Sometimes it's 3 hours. Last Sunday, I went dark for 3 hours on Easter Sunday. And what did that mean? I just disappeared and said, I'm driving with God, and I'm just not going to say a word. Not going to put on praise music. I am going to try to remove all of my thoughts and just drive. And I started being refilled and replenished, and he started reminding me of that 9-year-old that he protected. And these kind of times he's going to protect. I get chills. He's going to protect me too. And these kind of times he's got me. And lean not into my own understanding. How could I possibly gotten to here with my life? I couldn't have understood being here with you, and you from Russia, and you come on, and 20 years with a beautiful bride that's sitting over there smiling every time you talk. I couldn't have put that on a paper. And he's saying, but didn't I promise you that? Yeah. I said, don't worry. Who by worrying can add 1 single hour? And then I skip on down, and he says, what father would give his son a snake? And then I remember how much we care about our family and our loved ones. And then I remember that his love is deeper and wider. And if he loves me that much, and he says, do not worry, then okay, I'm good for a day. For a day.
Yeah.
For a day. Wow. One day at a time.
So that brings me to a question, because you even said when fear comes or when things come, right? So we will have fears.
Yes.
But when fear is getting hold of us, what is the first thing that you do, and how do you know whether you gave in to that fear already and living under its control or not? Like what's the first response?
You know, I think there's two. The one, I could easily go biblical. I could just say when fear is there, fear is not of the Lord. And I could do the whole church thing. Not going to do that. That's what I love about you. We're going to go deep and all of that. The reality is when there's fear set in, I literally go and try to see where the source is coming from and identify the source. And I try to see if that source is real or not real. Now, plenty of time that eliminates a lot of things. A lot of it is my mind. A lot of it is in my imagination, and a lot of it I'm dramatizing, and I only focus on the worst possible outcome. Even if we take the virus right now, they're focusing on the worst possible outcome. They're counting the deaths. Well, I looked at it, and 95% of the cases need mild to moderate attention. 5% need critical. So even if I were, and I hope God protects everybody watching us in the name of Jesus, and I hope he puts his bound over, his blood over me, and I hope I'm protected. But if I were to get that virus, I'm not going to allow myself to think that I am in the worst category of 5% or less. So if somebody tells me I have cancer, I immediately say, I'm going to pray for you only if you do one thing for me. And they'll go, what? I go, don't let it have its identity and its power. We'll never use that word again. We'll only say that you have an infection inside your body that's affecting you. Yeah. I will not give it cancer, because cancer has an association of a death sentence. Yeah. We're not saying that word anymore. Powerful. Right? So you said the word. I'm not going to give the enemy power that it doesn't deserve. So when that fear comes in, fear is not of the Lord, so therefore I understand that enemy. I got to identify that enemy, and how real is it? Well, if I have the virus, that's real. I can't pretend it's not. Yeah, and I can't pretend I'm not going to get fearful. I can remember the very first time they told me all the symptoms, and I woke up and I had a little upset stomach and I had a headache, and I went Googling, I think I got the virus.
I did too. I think
I got the virus. And thankfully I didn't. But I got so upset that I'd let my mind, because of what I had been feeding it on TV, but what I had been feeding it, I had fed that fear versus I had not fed my spirit. Then you have to go back to the source and put it in priority. And then I flip it when I'm in that fearful state. I'm going to identify it, and then I'm going to give it away. Because there's so many things we can't control. Let's focus on what we can control, and let's let go of what we can't. Can we control how many people, even though we love them and care about them, we can pray for them. Can we control how many people are going to get this virus today? Can we control how many people lost their jobs? But how much time and energy are we focusing on trying to control it? But can we control how many people we can send a text out to do it today and just say, hey, praying over you, God loves you. Just want to let you know you matter to me. I mean, it's just so, I try to change my direction. So I guess to answer that, I try to change my focus away from the fear. Because if my focus is on the fear grows. So I immediately identify it, give it to God, and refocus. That's the steps.
Amen. So I have one more question, and then I want you to encourage people, and maybe even like you said, hey, what's coming next in the world of as investor in the world of music? I mean, just kind of encourage people, and but this question comes in the form of instant gratification. We live for instant gratification. Oh my God.
Supersize me.
Yeah, supersize me. So how do we get from a mentality of instant gratification to a mentality of instant gratitude, preparation, and love, really for our life, and just rising our mind, our heart, just above it all things, from just what I want to what God's giving us. How do we get to that point?
I think we'll go back to your first statement of in these adverse times, now that I'm less than I'm a little older than 20 and 30 and 40. I look back at all those valleys, and Yuri, those valleys had unbelievable purpose in my life. Amen. Would I have ever wanted to be hit as a child? No, of course not. But does it give me a heart to go speak to the ones that have been abused? And does it give me a voice that they'll actually hear me, that I actually understand them? And so when we look at the standpoint of those valleys in life, they've always given me opportunity. So now when I see the valleys in life, although I walk through the valley, I will fear no evil. So he's already given me the instruction that when the valley comes, where will I probably turn to? Fear. He's already said, dude, this is so normal. When you go through one of those valleys, guess what? You're going to be, and I've instructed you not to be. But then he's also said, but whatever was meant for evil, he will turn to good.
No weapon formed
against me will prosper. And so when you look at that, it doesn't mean I'm not going to get sick. It doesn't mean I'm not going to die. It's saying in those valleys, there's opportunity. And I can't see a valley in my life, and I've had many. Some I probably could have avoided my own, so I have to take some credit that maybe I led myself into the valley, and I'll blame somebody else.
Yes, so
or I'll even say, God was wanting to teach me something. Yeah, well, guess what? He was trying to teach you before you went out on your own and did it to yourself.
Amen.
So he wasn't teaching anything, but he is there in the valley to help you. And in these valleys, I look beyond the valley. Boy, I felt that, right? I look beyond the valley. Why are we focused in the valley? Why aren't we looking beyond the valley? And so being an investment advisor and markets going down 40% in 2 weeks, the fastest correction of all times and all those things, as abnormal as it seemed to the world, we had not had a recession in 10 years.
Yeah.
That was abnormal. This is maybe more normal. The reason why is not. There's always a reason why. There's actors on the stage of finances. So it could be planes, it could be flip mortgages, it could be depressions. And there have been 9 of these corrections in the history of American economics. And they've all averaged about a 40% downturn. This one hit to 40%. If that's the bottom, who knows? All that's for, Ouija boards and magic. Nobody knows the future. No. Thank goodness we don't know the future. What I will say is in all of those times as an investor, we build our philosophy off of quality and diversification, time, and price matters. Mm. So was the market riskier 3 weeks ago or today? When prices were here or here?
There's always opportunity.
So the risk is actually less today than it was when we felt so comfortable. And in that fear, price goes down, opportunity arises.
Amen.
So there's everywhere you look right now in this adversity is all of the opportunities that springboard you to the next season. So if we're not doing the things and getting ready today for 5 years from now, we missed our opportunity to be blessed in those adverse times, right? So even though there's a lot of fear and timing and confusion, the reality says in the investment worlds, and I'm not talking about money, I'm talking about the investment worlds of even us as believers, going out and loving on somebody, not preaching to them and hitting the Bible over their head, loving on them and feeding them and hanging out with them and from social distancing and telling them they're going to be okay and you're there. That may be the only love they feel during this time. And it's like, what made you do it? And you go, no, it's the Jesus in me. This is my commandment. He says, I've given you faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. And of all the commandments, love each other. And dude, I don't want anything in return. I'm just loving on you. So there's an opportunity in this adversity to self-reflect and say, how did I have things out of balance? There's an opportunity in this adversity to dream. I'm very excited about coming out of this season. I'm a public speaker, and coming out of this season, they're going to need my words.
Some encouragement, yes.
So what was I doing when? So I would ask you, what are you doing now? What are you doing when? What are you thinking? What are you speaking?
Wow.
What are you dreaming? What are you rebuilding? I had a guy to come to me and he's just lost his job. And I said, congratulations. And he says, what? I said, you've hated this job forever.
That's true.
I said, congratulations. Now you have no choice but to dream and figure out what you want to do with your life. How am I going to pay the bills? I said, you hated paying the bills. You were going to die pretty soon. You were miserable at the job. What are you even talking about? You don't want your old job back. You got a new chance. And now you even have an excuse. I lost my job, so I have to do something different. Now do it right this time. Figure out what you were called to be and do and dream, and get out a piece of paper like you're in college again and write down some goals and write down some skill sets and be self-evaluating and tell yourself, really, this is who I am and I never was meant to run a restaurant. I hated it. It's just what I started doing and I started making money and I got trapped in it because you got to pay the bills. Opportunity is in how you look at today and how you look at your past. And how you see tomorrow. So if you see tomorrow as it all going to just crash and end, you're probably not going to take advantage of this opportunity. But if it all crashes and ends, does it matter what you did anyway?
Absolutely.
But if it doesn't all crash and end, what opportunity did you let get away that may never happen in my life again? Opportunities in the music business? You're talking about us. You want to get scared? Be in the record business.
You can't do any shows.
I
you can't do anything.
Any shows. They don't pay me on Spotify. So all of a sudden it's like, what do you do? Well, we do a lot in film and TV. So I'm like, why don't we just reinvent the way that we do our songs to them? And why don't we actually sit here and build a strategy to get our music heard by people because they're in their home right now. So they'll actually be able to listen. And oh my goodness, within minutes, I'm like, this is an opportunity for First Note to get on the radar of people that would have never seen us before. So let's go back and we've been working 14-hour days, repositioning and refocusing. And we believe somewhere somebody's going to want to come to a concert again. But we're positioning our names in these times. We figure somewhere somebody's going to do another movie and one of our songs in it. So we're letting them introduce day by day our artists to 50 of the best film and TV movie people in the industry. We're being proactive, believing things will be better, not reactive and fearful that things have ended. Because if they had have ended underneath that bed at 9 years old, if I had walked out with my dad with a knife to my mom's throat and Jesus hadn't have come into my life and I hadn't have seen opportunity and I hadn't have thought about the impossibilities, God is the impossible. If I hadn't have believed that voice that inside of me says, Tommy, you can be somebody. You don't have to be this. You don't have to drink. You don't have to smoke. You don't have to beat women. You can. And I heard this voice just resonate inside of me. And in these dark times, that voice is still saying, get out from under the bed. See, I had to get out from under the bed and claim what was already positioned to be mine. What's positioned out there for you? That's yours. It's there. It's right there in front of you. And fear is keeping you from taking that step, that action. See, we serve an impossible God. Lean not into your own understanding. You don't have to figure it out.
But in all you do, lean on His.
So I see it from there. I see it as the toughest time that I think I've ever been through. And that's saying something. And I see it as a time where everything gets reset. And we get to play the game over. You know, kids playing video games, game over. But all you got to push is restart. It's a new game. So for some people, for me, it's daily. I have to restart daily.
Yeah, I think it's for everyone.
But for some people right now, they don't feel like they have hope. They've lost their job, and that's so real. It's not a number called unemployment. It's called life. I can remember when my mom would walk in and say, Tom, I lost my job, and she's crying, and I don't know if we're going to keep our power, and sometimes we didn't, and I don't know if we're going to have food, and sometimes we really struggled. But I remember that look. on her face. And 20 million Americans have that look right now. And across the world, that's so real. That's so real. So easy to go, just think positive and just, no, it's real. What's also real is from under that bed, we serve an impossible God. So for some of us, it's time to decide if he's even real or not. And my challenge to him is, he's more than real. He's a God of an impossibility. I'm sitting here as an impossible. You're sitting here as an impossible. Yes. Your grandfather, and I've heard the story, and your dad, it's impossible for them to be in a wagon with people sticking holes in everything but them. Right now, for some people, they feel like it's impossible. And statistics say they'll take their own lives even during these times. And that's the people that don't think there is tomorrow. And so when it gets out of balance, really out of balance, like that far out of balance in my life, and it has, there's only one thing for me to do. Look up, look back down to the reality, and get through one day. If I can get through today, I got a real shot of tomorrow being different. And if I'll take an action towards that step, I promise you, in 30 days, in 30 days while we're trapped in this whole foggy, you take a one-step action, one positive thought. Everybody can think of one thing. And you add one more thing and one more thing. For 30 days, just reach out, even if you don't want to talk to anybody, and just call somebody, even though you don't even love yourself, and just say, thinking about you, thinking about that time when we were 14. That's been 30 years ago. Somebody sent me a picture of myself, and I had this big fro, and I was like 15, and I was like, how did you keep that? And please don't let anybody see it, right? It took me back to a time, 30 days, one positive step, one positive action, even if it's reaching out to somebody. In 30 days,
you will change your world.
You will be so thankful of these times.
Yeah, so there you have it, guys. There's always an opportunity in time of crisis. And I want you to live above uncertainty. I want you to live above calamity. I want you to live above chaos. So look up, look down, like Tommy Jackson said, but live above that uncertainty. Rise up. And when you rise up, just take those small steps and live a better life. I'll see you guys next week. God bless you.